and then forgot to do my survey for a little while. Um,
You're one of
but
those,
yeah,
eh?
I am. All right, no judgment. Come on.
This episode is sponsored by Druid City Games.
It's time for the Salt and Sass podcast when we share our love for the wonderful world of board games with you, whether you're a gaming veteran or just starting your tabletop journey. Welcome to episode 18. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Mandi.
Welcome back, everybody. It's another podcast day. I'm so excited. Mandi, look at our pretty background. I love this new stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, and if you're watching the podcast on the YouTubes, oh my goodness, I'm curious to see if you'll be able to pick out. You know what? Never mind. I'm just gonna tell you. There's pie. There are like little earphones with cat ears on them in this little
Yep,
wallpaper. It's fantastic. The colors are amazing. Suzanne,
it's
how
very on brand.
how did this happen? Like, who did this for us?
I'm very grateful to our friend Ian Reed, who works with Restoration Games as a professional graphic
Yay!
designer. He's incredibly talented and an incredibly nice guy, and gave us a little support on the Salt and Sass brand kit, so to speak. So we've got
I'm
new overlays,
so
and
excited.
I'm loving them.
I can say thank you in a few languages. Grazie, merci beaucoup, and muchas gracias. Oh, wait, no, no, no. Hold on. What's in German? I know German. Hold on. Oh no! Don't tell me. I say it all
I
the
don't
time.
know. Why? Don't tell me not to tell you. I don't know what it is.
Oh my gosh, my German listeners, I'm so sorry. I
Oh wait,
actually
I think
we
I know what
we
it is.
know it. We say
Danke,
it.
right?
Dankeschön.
Dankeschön. Dankeschön. I don't.
Dankeschön. So there we go. And if I mispronounce
Much
it, I apologize.
gratitude.
But there you go. So if you actually any other thank yous that I need to know, because it's important to be polite, please feel free to send them in to our email, which we'll
This would be
give
like
out at
the
the end of the
butterfly
show.
all over again,
Can
where
I
we're
tell
just
you though?
giving other languages of thank you
I
for
love
months
that
on
little
end.
bag of butterflies because now I played a trivia game last night and I was like, I know this one. And it was Italian for butterfly, farfalle. Oh my gosh, Ashley, don't kill me on that pronunciation. And I was like,
She's going to
butterfly,
tell you,
I know this one. Anyway, so it's very much appreciated.
yeah. All right, Mandy. I know you have been the jet setting lady of board games to me. So you had the gathering, which you talked about last episode,
I
but
did.
you also just recently attended the Asmodee open house in Canada, which
Yeah.
is not like a big public event, right?
No, so most people don't know about it because they're like, oh, how come I'm not going to this thing? It's mostly for game stores, so brick and mortar game stores. Some publishers will be there that work with Asmodee. And yeah, they're just showing off new products or things that are coming to the shelves for everybody that's listening to the podcast can then purchase at a later time. So I've been actually, funny story, Rodney Smith is the one who had suggested that I host with him the first time that they did the virtual open houses. And it's just been me going forward because I know Rodney has a much busier schedule, I think, than I do. So they've asked me to continue, and I've been hosting it ever since. So huge thank you to Rodney for shouting me out in the first place. And yeah, and Asmodee has been fantastic. I've got to meet some really great people. Shout out to everybody there, but especially Tommy. I worked with very closely, and Tommy helped me out quite a bit when I was there. But Kevin, the CEO, and the gang, amazing. So thank you so much. And I wanted to do a little shout out specifically for one of the initiatives there called Access Plus. So for those who do work in game stores or own a game store and listen to the podcast, you may have these in your stores already. If not, definitely look into them. So Access Plus looks at games that already exist, such as like Timeline. You've heard of the game Timeline? Spot It. These types of games, yeah, and they're making them more accessible. Hence the Access Plus. So people like me who have ADHD maybe learn a little differently, or even if you have people who have challenges with memory, things like that, and sometimes they could be used in hospitals, for maybe older patients who are going through, things that are affecting their memory and so forth. These types of games make the cards a little bit bigger. They're tactile, so like some of them have a little bit of texture, but they're games that already exist. They're just kind of reformatted for,
Oh, cool.
different brains. So I think it's great. And I definitely hope that more and more we'll see more of these types of games in stores because it's nice to feel acknowledged. So
Absolutely. And I know that within the board gaming hobby, Asmodee is a hot topic,
Yep.
right? Because they are one of the largest, if not, well, in the hobby world,
Yeah.
right? There's always something like Hasbro, which is a whole
Sure.
different level. But, and I think that there are sensitivities from the consumer side
Yeah,
about Asmodee buying smaller
of course.
publishers and the decisions and changes that they make around there, which I think are all very valid and, reasonable. Well, not all, but I also think that this Access Plus program sounds like a great example of how Asmodee can be such a
Yeah,
positive influence with their size and their strength in the market. That when they choose to do something like an accessibility program, I think it has such a great leg up because of that corporate strength that they have. So that's
right.
really great to hear, Mandy. I had not heard of the program, so thank you so much
Ah,
for
okay.
sharing that with us because it does sound like something that could be incredibly valuable and hopefully very influential in the industry.
Oh, for sure. They sent me home with 3 of the games Spotted, Timeline. I apologize, the other one's escaping me, but they're games that already exist, so I'm hoping to go through them, try them, and then share with you, how they are. And, les jeux sont disponibles en français aussi, so they are also available, in French. So, for those where French is your
I
first
understood that.
language, yay! I mean, because je parle un petit peu de français aussi. So it's important to talk about that, especially here in Canada. So stay tuned. I will definitely bring those games more to light after I've given them a try.
Well, then, Mandy, I guess since you've been such a busy, busy butterfly that you haven't had any time to play any video games, right?
Well, okay, well, I didn't say that.
Oh, pardon.
So,
Pardon.
oh boy, everybody, this is. Do you
Oh
sure?
boy.
Wait,
Do
are
I
you
need to
sure
like
you don't want
buckle
to
up?
go first? Because yours is like
I haven't
short.
been playing anything. I took my family for a little vacation away to Canada, not anywhere near
Yeah,
you,
I
unfortunately.
know, but
Uh,
awesome.
we played, and actually, it's funny you mentioned Spot It because we played a ton of Spot It in
That's
the hotel, just
that's
all the
awesome.
different versions. We had a lot of fun. But so I have not been. The only game I've really been playing
Mhm.
has been, or trying to play, is a new game called Patch Quest,
Oh,
which looks really, really cool. But unfortunately, I have a couple of computers. One of my computers is just not having it. It's not the
it's
game's
like
fault.
nope.
It's my computer's fault. And
Uh,
so, mm.
yeah.
But Patch Quest is one I'm just starting to dig into. It has this cool kind of tile, like a little bit of tile lane, but you're really adventuring and fighting, and you want to use a controller, that kind of thing. So
Oh, okay.
I'll get more time in and talk about it in the future. But Mandy, all right, what have you been doing?
Okay. Well, I'll start. I'm gonna say with the two that I'm enjoying, but most problematic games. And you're like, what? Why is it problematic? Well, for those who are familiar with the video game world, you know that games on launch 90% of the time are not usually 100%. They're glitchy, potentially a little laggy. There are issues. So, Ghostwire Tokyo, I know I've mentioned it a couple times, but I hadn't had a chance to play it. I finally started playing it, and oh my gosh, I was like, why do I feel sick playing this game? And it was a little, I don't even know if laggy is the right word, but the performance just wasn't there for me. And this, I think, is a game by Tango Gameworks. So I had to look this one up here. But it was published by Bethesda. And anybody who's familiar with Bethesda knows about the Fallout series. I'm looking at you, Fallout 76 in particular. So bad at launch. Like, super glitchy. I enjoy playing it now. Didn't at the time because it was a bit rough. Ghostwire Tokyo, I really like the kind of fantasy element of it. And I'll just give like a quick little overview because I haven't played too deep in the story yet, but it's this person in the game gets in an accident, seems like they're near death, and then all of a sudden their body's inhabited by some like random spirit who seems a little angry at first. He needs to calm down there. But then they're going to work together to try and save his sister, and then get rid of this like evil being that the ghost wants to get rid of but can only do it from a physical body. So there's a lot of that kind of fantasy type element, and it takes place somewhere, well, in Tokyo. So you have that background, which is really cool, and you've got like really cool powers and stuff that you can use. So it was a PlayStation exclusive, I think, and then now this was before Bethesda like signed that deal and everything with Xbox, but now it's available on Xbox. It just wasn't running super great. So it's fine. I'm not as bothered by it as some people, but it definitely needs some work to make it super beautiful on there. So I've been playing it. So far, so good. I'm playing it on normal for now. Okay. I'm not one of those people that needs to be harassed into playing it like super hard. I want to enjoy it. So we'll see how it goes. If you need that difficulty, then I'll raise it up. So that's Ghostwire Tokyo, and I'm playing that on Xbox, but it is available on PlayStation, which is where it initially started, and I think it's also on PC. Then there's Redfall. And I'm gonna give a moment of pause because Redfall, oh, I feel so bad. Redfall has been getting the most negative reviews. It launched not that long ago, like a week ago or so, and it's just it's rough. So I unpopular opinion here. I really like it. I've been playing it with my brother and some
Why is
other
that
friends.
unpopular?
Oh, because everyone's been complaining about it.
Oh,
So,
I'm not as in tune to this stuff, so I did not
yeah.
realize that.
This one is developed by Arcane Austin and again published by Bethesda. Wow, Bethesda, you're on a roll here. And it's I think this is one of the ones that was supposed to be like a new one for Xbox, like one of their triple A games, because PlayStation, they've got some bangers and some exclusives that continually come out, some really big AAA games. Xbox, the latest AAA game they had was like Halo Infinite. Do you know what I mean? So they need a
Mhm.
win here, and Redfall was supposed to be it. Unfortunately, it didn't launch with the pew that everybody wanted. But the game itself is actually really fun. So in the game, there's like a group of you. I think there's only like 4 characters you can play, and you have like special abilities you can use, but you're trying to take out vampires in the town. But it almost has like a really not scary, but cute kind of cartoony element to it, but it's not a cartoon. I can't explain it. It's just like a softer look than your usual realistic vampire. Do you know what I mean? It has the same kind of vibe as Ghostwire Tokyo, so more of that
Okay.
fantasy-esque kind of vibe to it.
Okay.
But yeah, you're trying to clean up the town, take out the vampires and the cultists and all the things that are taking over the city. I've only played about 10 hours so far. It's a little glitchy. Keeps dropping us because you can only play with, like, people you invite to your game, so friends. And I think it plays up to 4 in a game, but it does drop quite often, and because I play on Xbox,
Ooh.
I have friends who play on PC, and I don't know if it's just not working out, but we end up getting dropped quite a few times. I find the PC seems to be more glitchy than Xbox, but here we are.
Mm.
But the game itself, we're having a blast. Woo! Oh my god! Ah, I can hear them talking. Oh my gosh, they're coming! Do you know what I mean? And I'm playing this actually on really hard mode because the midnight, I think it's like midnight mode or whatever. It is not that hard. So I like Redfall. Give it time, everybody. Be patient. Oh, tweak your settings. I felt sick playing this game. Sometimes you play and the screen moves around and you're like, oh my God. It was like that. It was just the movements because it's a bit laggy because it needs to be polished a bit more. But if anybody's like, oh my gosh, what are these settings? I will send them to you, or maybe we can post them in our little thing there in the description. Fix the settings. It makes a world of difference. Anyway, so Redfall, you can play that on Xbox, PC. I'm having fun with it. It's just gonna get better. Then I played on Steam, Clow Roll and Heist, and I think Suzanne, you are the one who actually recommended this to me because I think
Well, I reviewed a while ago the paper version
right,
of it. I
right.
have not discussed publicly the app version, so you're ahead of me there.
Okay, it's not finished because there's like a campaign mode and you can play like one-offs, but you're trying to use dice to get through. Well, I guess depends on the scenario you're doing in the campaign, but you're trying to go through a store and trying to like open up certain kind of doorways and pass using dice that you have and abilities that you have without tripping alarms, and you have only so much time in order to do it and get out without tripping the alarm. And if you do the campaign mode, you have to do it in so many turns, or potentially like you'll lose the campaign. You just have to start over. So it's not finished. So there's only one campaign, I think, right now. Um, I like where the game is going. The instruction is too much. There's too much reading, and I enjoy reading. Let's be clear. I enjoy reading. This is too much. I have games that are bigger than this that I play online, and I don't have to read as much to like get the game started. 3 times. 3 times it took me to start this, like actually get to the meat of the game because
With
just
the
the
roll of the R and everything, yikes.
oh my gosh, Suzanne. It's like paragraphs after paragraphs of just, okay, I get it. Click next. Like I'll figure it out. Okay, let's go. They need to fix that tutorial. It's a problem for me. I don't want to read that
It
much.
sounds like it,
Just
yeah.
let's get to the meat of the matter here. So I it's unfinished. We'll see how it goes. I like the game, don't like the way that they've packaged it. So we'll see
That's
how
a big
that
deal.
works.
Alright.
Sorry, I've got a lot of games for everybody. It's been a hot minute. Got 2 more. Then I have Islanders that I'm playing on Steam, but Suzanne, you play Islanders too.
Yeah, I've played Islanders.
Okay, how about you talk a little bit about Islanders? Because I feel like I'm blabbering. Do you remember it enough, or do you want me to kinda
Well, Islanders is yeah, I remember it enough. So
Okay.
basically, Islanders is I don't know actually what you type of game you call it, but you start on a little island and you get a choice between two things to add to your island. And as you progress, they start to feed off of each other. And I guess it's engine building now that I think about it, right?
Yeah,
You're trying to create this little island environment that feeds into each other and generates points. So, for example, maybe you're building a foresty thing, so you build lumber mills and things like that. Or maybe
right,
you're going for the city on the beach, and so you're building buildings and town centers. And uh, the island has a limited amount of physical real estate with different
right.
varied terrain features, and so working within those to optimize your space and where you put things and put adjacency rules and things like that. It's pretty chill. Like
Yeah,
I like Islanders because it's it's still engaging and interesting and puzzly,
right,
but I don't it doesn't stress me out. It stresses me out less even than like well, Dwarf Romantic, right? Because Dwarf
yeah,
Romantic, which is again another game I love,
right.
but for some reason, for as peaceful and
To stress
pastoral
you
and
out.
pretty Dwarf Romantic, like I get all worked up about these darn tiles coming out. Islanders doesn't have that same vibe for me
Yeah.
for some reason. But yeah, it's a great I love Islanders and I played it on Steam originally, but it's come out on a bunch of platforms since then, which is nice.
Yeah, because I think it's also on console as well. I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure. But, yeah,
I think so, yeah.
it's like a before bed game for me. So, yes,
Mhm.
I have a laptop that I either hook up to my television or I have a little pink table that I set up on my bed and I play it because I refuse to buy a Steam Deck. Yeah, I said it,
Of course it's
okay?
pink.
I do not need another electronic in my house for now. Okay, moving on. So Islanders.
For now. Yes.
Yeah, exactly, it's
Okay.
good. Okay, last one, Dealer's Life 2. And so this one, I don't even know why. I saw it, it was on sale. I was like, "Yeah, okay, it's like a few bucks. Let me give it a whirl because 'cause I'm cheap for those who are maybe just listening for the first time. I do not buy games at regular price. Sorry. Video games specifically, no, not gonna happen. It needs to be on like super on sale or on Game Pass. That's the only way it's gonna happen. So Dealer's Life 2. It's literally like you have a store and then you're getting items, like taking items from people and then reselling them. So you want to buy them cheap. So like a pawn shop kind of thing. So you want to buy them cheap and then resell them, and then you hire people to work in your store, but you have only like limited slots because you have to pay these people, but you have to have income coming in. Like it's kind of like one of these sim games, but not exactly like a sim game. But that's literally it. So not a lot
Mm.
of super deep thought into it. I mean, you can, I guess, if you really want to get strategic with it. I don't. I'm just like, oh, this is pretty. This looks nice.
No
So
judgment. No judgment here at all.
oh, no, you could totally judge because I literally have no idea why I bought this game. So, it's not bad by any means. I mean, it's, again, one of those games if I was like, I didn't really wanna think too much, and I just wanted to chill, sure, I would try Dealer's Life too, but it is what it is. There you
All
go.
right.
Sorry, that was a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just impressed that you managed to fit it all in. I think that's probably your ADHD coming out a little bit.
Too much.
I just don't think you stopped, Mandy.
Yeah, it's not good because then I'll just burn out, and then I'll have a minute where I'm just like, "Nah, I haven't played anything."
All right, before we slide into games that we have been playing, we've got a couple of campaigns that are being crowdfunded that we wanted to highlight, right, Mandy?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Would you like to go first?
Oh, of course. I mean, I've been talking. Why stop now, everybody? So this will be quick though, because it's not a board game, woo, but it is gaming related, and it's called FE Metal Dice Series 2. You're like, what is this? Let's talk about it. This is
What
they're
is this?
exactly what is this? So these are created by Brother Ming Games. I think they're retailing for about 85 US as like a special, but it's limited pricing, so it's going to go up over $100 if you don't get it within a certain amount of days. And it's dice that feature their different artists do their creations on these metal dice, and it's like little characters. I don't know, characters or symbols, and they're so cute. They're like almost look like animated a little bit,
Mhm.
the art that's on them. And, like
They're
I said,
incredibly detailed.
right? And every artist does a set, so I think they have, like, 5 or 6 different artists that does a set, so they all look different, but all equally just really beautiful. And the project, ends, well, if it's fully funded and we can get all our stuffs by Thursday, May 11th. So What's the airing
I'm
of this
just so proud
podcast?
that you remembered to put the date.
I know, and then I had to think about
Good
it. I'm like, "Wait a
job.
second. Is that gonna pass by the time this airs?" No, I think we're good. So,
We're good.
Thursday,
We're good.
May 11th. So, the dice, honestly, Suzanne and I were talking about this before we started recording. I don't actually know if they're meant to be used for anything. I I don't
Uh,
know? Question mark.
it must be for a game that we don't personally play.
I looked it up though. I went through that campaign. I even went through the first campaign, and it really just seems like they're dice to be shown off, like just showcased.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna make dice just to be showcased, these dice fit the bill, that's for sure.
These would do it. So I know it
I would
isn't.
have to imagine we're missing I mean, they're
I
I would
looked.
have to imagine we're missing something here, right?
I swear to you, I went through the campaign. So unless there's a game that I missed in that whole thing, I went through the first campaign because this is series 2, so they had a series 1 before. Went through the campaign. I didn't see anything mentioned. I didn't even see any rolling of dice happening.
Fair enough, fair enough.
So I
I
if I'm
don't
wrong,
know.
someone will tell me. But either way, I mean, I backed it. so
Yeah, they're amazing. I mean,
so
I
yeah,
don't think we see, at least not in board games, like
yeah.
cast enamel dice.
No.
This is definitely a level up thing.
Right. So there you go. So FE Metal Dice Series 2. Yes, that's ending May 11th. And when I get them, you'll see them
Because FE
showcased.
is Fire Emblem, right?
I think so. I believe so.
Yeah.
I hope,
So if
I
you're a
hope
fan of
so.
Fire Emblem, check it out for sure.
Yeah, but they're going to somewhere on this shelf here. So, all right. There you go. See, nice and quick.
All right. Well, the campaign I wanted to highlight, which we always like to try to pull out little gems, maybe things that might not get as much attention because there are so many great people doing
Yeah.
great things out there. But I couldn't not mention this one, as big as it may seem to us, because
So
yeah.
good.
So Clank Legacy 2 Darkest Magic is on Kickstarter right now. It ends May 26th. And this is the second version of Clank Legacy, the sequel
So
to Clank
stoked.
Legacy, which, if, yeah. So it's $100, $99 plus shipping, which I know is going to be a little for a lot of folks. And
Sure.
that is fair. This is an expensive game. What I will also say is I don't have any experience or special knowledge about Clank Legacy 2.
Yeah.
But what I can share about Clank Legacy 1 is playing through that game was one of the best gaming experiences I have ever
So
had
good.
in my life.
Me too.
It was
So good.
so fun, so interesting. The little things that would pop up here and there, just we would constantly have these little oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened moments. And you were eager for
Yeah.
each next play or for each new discovery, and I think that that is somewhat uncommon in games.
Sure.
And Clank Legacy 2 is a auto back for me at that price. Even I'll save up for it, I'll sacrifice somewhere else because Clank Legacy 1 was so good. So that's through May 26th. Check it out on Kickstarter, Clank Legacy 2.
I'll be backing this one too. The first one was a banger. So, very excited.
Oh no, oh no, stop trying to make banger a thing.
Right? It's gonna happen.
All right, let's go and talk about games that we have been playing.
Okay, so I got a few games, but the first game I want to talk about is one that I played at the Gathering of Friends. And it's one that I backed on Kickstarter, and I think we talked about it here on the podcast, maybe the last one or the one before, and that's Taiwan Night Market. And this is by Taiwan Game Design. Did I say that right? No, Taiwan.
I think so. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm doing it by memory. I apologize. Taiwan Game Design. And
That's right. Yeah.
yeah. So this was on Kickstarter, successfully funded, and it was 42 US plus shipping. So it was reasonable. I mean, the shipping was a little bit more, but because of where it's coming from, it's going to be a bit more expensive. And Taiwan Night Market is an auction game, and you bid for different locations in the night market every round, and you choose your like stalls, so food, drinks, desserts, or snacks that you want to build to attract tourists, to come and visit you and not the others. So you can get all the money, and the player with the most money wins the game. So this is for Corey, who was like, "Oh, I'm not doing really well." And Corey, is a friend of ours and also does podcasting with the Dice Tower. And guess who won the game? Yeah, Corey. I'm like, "Okay, Corey, I don't know if I believe you anymore." But anyway. So so in the game, there's just quickly to just give you a little overview. There's a board, and it's cool. I like it because it's black, which I love as a background because then anything on it that you put with color pops out. And on the
Mhm.
board, you have these like different locations where you're going to put these cards, which we're going to use for bidding. And eventually, then those cards where you've bid are going to become like your market stalls or whatever. So that are going to go in those places, and then you'll have customers that run from certain points on the board to other points, and ideally you want your shop to be the first point that's hit when it runs its pathing. So, we'll get to all of that. But, the game is played over 5 rounds, and, in a 4-player game, I think it's slightly different, so ours, I think it was yeah, so for 5 rounds, but if you have fewer players, I think it's 6 rounds, so that will make a difference, and they have different phases: preparation, bidding, open for business, and cleaning up. I'm not huge on bidding games like auction, but I actually didn't mind it in this game. So what ends up happening first is you get 5 new locations, and there are these cards that have numbers on them. So it'll be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. But that's how much you're going to bid to put on these locations. And then you're going to reveal your customers. And the customers are these like tokens that you have. And these are the ones that they're going to be wanting to go to certain locations, and they're color coded. So there's like green, red, blue, and yellow. And the different locations that you can acquire are of the same color. So that lets you know where they're going to start and where they're going to want to go and what type of foods they want. Each player then chooses one of the hidden customers for the round, and then they'll be revealed at a later time. Then you're going to bid. So you want to look at the locations of where they're going to be. This is the customer. There are customers that are seated on the board, so you know they're going to run through, but then we're going to add more customers. So now you have to determine where's the best place for your stall. So everybody bids on the cards to show where they want to. Okay, I'm going to do that, and then after we'll go through and see who's won each location. Whoever wins the bid, they do have to pay for it. Everybody else, you don't have to pay. So just the person who won. Then you open your place for business. And this is where all those customers that were hidden before, we're now going to run them through their places on the board. Like once we've established who's won which area, and then whoever the customer hits first, that's who's going to serve them their drink or food or whatever they're looking for, which is basically going to generate more money. And there's a phase in the game where you're going to be able to get certain abilities which will increase things that you get, or maybe you have something that does like a call out thing. So it's like, no, we're going to skip the other player's stall and go to yours instead. Like little things like that that can change it up a little bit. And then after that, you do the cleanup phase. Like you collect all your money for however many customers visited, because you can only have one person to visit per location. Then you clean up, you refill your hand back to your tokens of customers. So 4 of those. We adjust the turn order track, and then we start a new round starting with phase 1. So that's a general overview. I missed a few other little things, but you get the idea how the game works. I really liked it. I was really nervous about bidding because as soon as I see stuff with bidding, I'm like, ugh, no, thank you. It's just not for me. You know what I mean? Um, but I liked the way that it worked here. And if you didn't get a location, you do actually have an opportunity to bid again for that player that didn't get anything. So they actually you're not left out in the cold, which I appreciate. Some games just kind of like, no, you're see you later. That's it. No, you do have an opportunity to get a location. I also like little abilities that you can get later on in the game. Those will get really powerful, but you're not stuck. If you're not the first location, well, let me just get a little thing here that attracts clients to my place before yours, or things like that. And it's available for everybody to do. You just have to choose the right thing for you. So this is not like a final review. I just wanted to give everyone a kind of overview that I played it. I really enjoyed it enough that I backed it. And I hope to play it again. Definitely one of those games that I think is going to play better with like a 3 or 4 player count. I just find these types of games generally lends itself to being played with more people. But yeah, looking forward to trying Taiwan Night Market again.
That's great. Well, that's great to hear because I already backed it as well.
Nice.
I love the theme and the setting alone. I think it's just so appealing to me, and sounds great. So
Yeah, I think you're
cool,
really going to like it.
awesome. First up for me, now for longtime listeners, you know that Mandy and I will sometimes do a one and done, and
Uh-oh.
these are games that we played and we're just done with,
Yep.
and we often try to couch it in terms of this game isn't for me.
Yeah.
uh, because quality is a very personal thing.
Absolutely.
Well, now I have a one and I don't know,
Wait, wait.
because I've only played this game once. I'm trying to be transparent. I've
Not
only played this game once,
wait,
but I
not
wanted
one
to
and
talk
done.
about it.
One
Yeah,
and
it's not a one and
I
done.
don't know.
It's a one and I don't know.
I love it.
I don't know.
I love it.
So this is perhaps Mandy. There's a series of movies. I'm not sure if you get them in Canada. They're not very. I don't know if they're really popular up there.
No.
Called Star Wars. Have you ever heard of the Star Wars movies?
I'm probably not the best person to ask because I don't watch a ton of television. I'm gonna say probably, but I don't watch it.
Yeah, it's got characters like Luke Skyjacker and things like that, and it's fun. It's a fun little romp. So this game is the Star Wars deck builder. Please don't at us. I am an avid Star Wars fan, have been since I was a child in the 70s. Leave me alone.
All right.
Caleb Grace is listed as a designer. There are a gabillion artists. I'm not going to list them all here because it's published by Fantasy Flight Games, which of course produces most of the Star Wars board games out there for the hobby. This is going to retail for about 38 US dollars. And it is a Star Wars deck building game. For those of you who aren't familiar, deck building is when you start off with a small deck of
Yeah.
cards, and a lot of the game is about you getting new cards into your deck and cycling through them turn after turn to try to create powerful moves for whatever the game does. In this case, you're fighting each other. Star Wars deck building game is a two-player game in which one of you will take on the role of the Empire, another one will take on the role of the Rebel faction. And you have your little starting hand of cards that will do a couple different things, and then you get a big deck of cards that you lay out, and you put like 5 cards out in the market, the card market, where you can get new cards from. So you also have planet cards or base
Mm,
cards, I guess, but they're planets like Naboo or things like that. And what you're going to do is you get starting planets, and you're going to pick which 4 planets you want to play the game with, and those are the planets or the bases that you're going to have. And you're going to get your hand, and then you're going to pick which planet you start with, put it out there. Cool. Then you're gonna play the game. So there are cards specific to the rebels, there are cards specific to the empire, and then there are neutral cards. One of the interesting things about this game is that when you get the cards laid out, uh, if you are the rebel cards are pointed towards you. If you are the empire, the cards should be oriented to point towards you in the card market. We're not talking about in play yet. We're
mm,
talking about in the card market. And if they're neutral, you're supposed to turn them sideways.
okay.
This is already a little bit awkward, quite frankly, to have cards sideways, reading them sideways, but I get
Yeah.
why they're doing it. Cool. And when cards are in the market, depending on whose turn it is, you have a choice. You can buy them if they are of your faction. You can attack them if they are the opponent's faction. And
Ooh.
or you can just leave them there. And this is already kind of cool because that means, Mandy, if you are the dirty nasty empire and I am the plucky rebels, that when you get a card out there and I'm like, oh, I cannot let Mandy have this, instead of
Right.
attacking you directly with the power in my hand, I can attack the card in the market to prevent you from getting it, but
Ooh.
also I will get a bonus. There's
Ooh.
on the bottom of these cards when they're facing you see like, oh, if you attack this card and you beat it, you get these bonuses instead. So
Right.
that's kind of an interesting little twist there. So as you're buying cards and getting them into your deck, you're going to be doing that where cards, as you play them, you have hand cards, they're going to give you pew pew points, right? They're going to give you force points or money, pew pew. Um, and you will use these to buy more cards or to attack your opponent. There are big fleet ships that will come out, and these are horizontal cards. So when you play a fleet card, it goes out there and it stays there until it's knocked out, and you cannot attack your opponent's planet until you knock out their ships. Which, if you have played a game called Star Realms, this will feel a little similar to bases, and it works in a similar fashion. Although the ships provide resources in a way that really contribute to your power, et cetera, as you go through them.
Right.
And some another little thematic twist is that cards will have if the force is with you abilities on them. So there is a tug of war track to the side. And one of the things you can do is manipulate this track. And if the force marker is on your side of the track, the force is with you, and that will change the strength of some of your cards depending on that situation.
Right.
Very thematic, very cute thing from that point of view. Like I said, you're going to play until you knock out an opponent's all their planets, all their bases, and then you win the game. I already mentioned Star Realms in here, which is, of course, one of the uh, found I don't know, most popular, biggest, most lauded combat 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 deck building games. I don't know, out there. And I think there's good reason for that. There are some similarities,
Yeah.
although deck builders in general have a formula that's very common.
Right.
Draw a hand of 5 cards. When you buy a new card, it goes into your discard. These are all like just rote
Yeah.
rules,
Mhm.
right? Bases and the fleet ships work similarly in that you have to knock them out before you can attack the player directly.
Right.
So, being compared to Star Realms is not necessarily a bad thing. I am a huge fan of Star Realms.
Yeah.
I love Star Realms. It's a great game. I've
So
played
good.
literally because they have a great digital version. I've played
Yeah.
literally thousands of games of Star Realms, to be clear, right? And I don't think being compared to Star Realms is a bad thing at all. I do think that there are some nice little twists in the Star Wars deck builder that set it apart enough, even just being able to pick the planet that you play. So let's say, I knock out one of Mandy's bases because I'm kicking her butt. Then Mandy goes through her planets and she gets to pick which one comes out next. And they have
Right.
different abilities. So depending on the situation and what she's seen about how I'm playing my game, she could try to optimize a little bit. And I like that element a lot. That market thing I mentioned where you can attack cards in the market, I like a lot as well. And of course, the force thing is a nice thematic twist.
Mhm.
A couple of things that, again, I have played once that kind of stood out to me as that market can be rough. If the market is not moving because you are not buying or attacking cards there, it can be rough. And I did find that in the game I played with my friend Josh, that Josh, who has played more than me, knew that sometimes leaving the market stagnant, full of cards that he could use,
Oh,
but
no.
I couldn't,
Right.
was a strategic move that he
Oh.
did, and I sat there being frustrated off my butt at times. Um, so that was an interesting element for sure. I will say too, the arc of the game, it kind of starts a little slow. It kind of has this long early to mid game stretch,
Right.
and then it just starts to fire off. Like it just got bananas as, decks started to come together a little bit more and things started triggering a little bit more. And then
Right.
it became really exciting. But I could see that power climb, that little slope might be a little bit long.
Okay.
But all of that said, I really, really enjoyed the game. I did win, but that's neither here nor there. Um, that said, I don't think I'm going to buy a copy of this game.
Oh.
I have a lot of Star Realms. I also have a lot of Hero Realms.
True.
And I think if you don't have Star Realms and you don't have Hero Realms, but you want a game like that, Star Wars Deck Builder is a great entry. There's also a game called Shards of Infinity
Mm.
that is a combat deck builder as well that has some
Yeah.
different elements. I would say it's slightly more complex than the Star Wars deck builder. So I think that the Star Wars deck builder might be a nicer entree, especially if you're
Sure.
going to play with a lot of newer people or people who aren't into as complex of a game. I think the Star
Mm.
Wars deck builder is probably a great entry
Yeah.
point for you on that
Snappy.
front. If you are a huge Star Wars fan, I think that there are lots of little touches in this game that are thematic and awesome that you will just be able to y- just groove with.
Okay.
So get it. Um, just for me, I already have so many games. I have a lot of deck builders, so I don't think I'm gonna pick this one up, even though I really liked it. So I don't know if that's not a one and done. Like I will play it again. Josh, come on over. Let's play again. But I don't know. I don't know. What is that? A one and
I don't know. Dot, dot, dot.
a one and
I don't
I
know.
don't know. So there you go.
Or it
So
could
that
be
is
a
the
like
Star
a
Wars deck builder.
it could be a one and done and then no and then. Funny story about Star Realms actually, because now that you've told me the game you mentioned, sorry, the Star Realms. Let me back it up here. The Star Wars deck builder. Star Wars for me, it's hit or miss. I do enjoy it. I think I just enjoyed old school Star Wars because that's what I grew up with. The newest stuff is good too, but then some of the new games and stuff that are coming out, I'm like, I don't know. And I have to say, from your description, I don't think this is something that I want to delve into if Star realms exists. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
also it's two-player only, Mandy, and we know
Also
that
that.
that's a challenge because you tend
Yeah.
to have larger game groups, yeah.
Exactly. And funny story before I go into my next game about Star Realms. I'm like, wow, I must be either really bad or really good at this game because I ended up playing with someone from IGN. And I don't know if people know. Yeah, so this is someone who was pretty big at IGN. I played one game and then I never heard from them again. So it was like, sorry.
Ooh.
I know, and it was a really good game. So I'm like, okay, either I was better than I thought, or maybe I just wasn't. I don't know. So I don't know. Hopefully, I'll have more exciting games like that. Anywho, let's stick to maybe some of the games that are, on my shelf that need to be played. Well, I played one called My Shelfie. Now, we played another Shelfie game. The name is escaping me right now, but we had discussed on the podcast. We did a stream actually of a game with a similar kind of concept of having games on
Right,
the
the
shelf.
one, from Garfield Games, right?
Yes, I believe so. And that one was really nice too, but this is different. This one is called My
Okay.
Shelfie, and this one's designed by Matthew Dunstan and Phil Walker Harding. Art is by Shannon Grossenbacher and Sarah Valentino. It's published by Cranio Creations and Lucky Duck Games. Plays 2 to 4 players in about 30 minutes, and it retails for about $38 Canadian. For some reason on our sites, though, we have two prices because one potentially comes in as an import, depending, I guess, where you're getting it from, whether it's through Cranio or Lucky Duck, but 38 Canadian is about what you're looking at. So the first time I played My Shelfie, I played with Suzanne, potentially also with Ashley. I don't remember. We played
Yep.
it online. So it was like the digital version. So now we have the physical version, and it's different when you see it because when you set it up, it looks like, do you all know the game Connect 4?
Yes.
It has that kind of grid. And so, like in Connect 4, you drop little black and
Mhm.
red, like checker things in there to connect 4 of the same color. The setup, like the grid looks something like that, but it just has, I think, a few more. It's just not as big, it's smaller. And you're going to be putting tiles in there versus tokens. And you have different tiles that are different colors that are set up on this board. Depending on player count, will depend how many go out. But I think there's like green, white, pink, yellow, blue, dark blue, and light blue. Those are the colors. And the reason why that matters is because you have these cards, like objective cards for everybody that comes out that you can fulfill. And some of them are like, for example, equal tiles, the same tiles in the 4 corners of your kind of shelfie that you have, as an example. And then you also have a personal goal card, and it has specific places where it wants certain colored tiles. So if you want to get those points, you have to get the tiles and the colors stipulated on your personal goal card. And then there are end game points where it looks at getting groupings of similar of same colored tiles. Okay, so those are some things that'll be looked at the end of the game. But during the game, what's going to happen is after you've set up your shelf, you're going to take turns taking tiles from this main board, and you can only take 1, 2, or 3 tiles. And the tiles have to be open, at least one side open, and it has to be in a straight line. And that has to be from the beginning of your turn. Everyone's like, oh, that seems a bit strange. Well, you could take a tile, and then another one becomes open. It needed to have been open before you took that first tile. So 1, 2, or 3 tiles is what you're going to take from the living room area, and you're going to put them in the same column in your shelf. So you have several columns. So you're like, oh, I spread them out. No, this is what makes it tricky. They have to go in the same column. So it makes it really hard when you're trying to get similar colors together going forward or configurations for the objective cards. So you continue doing that. And then once there are 4 or fewer tiles on the living room kind of area, you take those tiles off and then you repopulate the board with more tiles. So there's like a bag, shake them up, and then repopulate the board. And then you do it all over again. And you do this all over again until the first person to complete their shelf with tiles takes, there's like a marker, and then it's an equal number of turns. So if that person was the first player, then the other people would get another turn until it comes back to them. So yeah, that's literally the game. I feel like I'm missing something, but no, that's the game. So it
Yeah, it's a pretty
sounds
straightforward game.
pretty straightforward. Yeah. So you're like, oh, okay, that sounds boring. It's not. It can get really tricky, especially when you have configurations and stuff. Now you have to strategically determine where you're going to place things while also trying to complete your personal objective, which is going to give you a lot of points. Do you know what I mean? And also trying to get alike colors together because it also gives you a lot of points. We did come across one card where, or one situation where one of the players, like, my personal objective conflicts with one of the group objectives. Like, yeah, like it just wasn't possible.
Well, you had to make a
Well,
choice.
and this is it. But here's the thing. Does that seem fair though? Because then it's just like randomly that one person, everybody else can do it, but that one person. That seems
I get that. Yes, that I could see where that would be
yeah.
frustrating for sure.
I think if everybody had that risk, different story, but it's literally one card.
Sure, 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 sure.
So it just
Yes, no, I
feels
think that's
like
very fair.
yeah.
Mhm,
So if you were to get that card, I would recommend maybe not playing like certain cards with that card because I don't think it's fair that one person be penalized where everybody else potentially could get all the things that person literally can only get 3 of the
mhm,
4. So
mhm.
that was the only that came up. But I love the struggle of trying to like, oh gosh, okay, I really need this tile. But if you didn't have enough room to hold all your tiles, you can only take one tile. But then now you've opened it up for somebody else to potentially take the tiles you need. I like that. Do you know what I mean? So you'll maybe want to
Mhm,
take other tiles. So it's like, well, I don't want to open it up for them, but I could potentially use this later on down the road. So even though I'm not a planner and it is a little tricky planning in this game, you kind of have to do a little bit of that and not try to keep the board too open for other people. Um, but it's not mean. You know, some games come across as really mean. I still find this game gives people opportunities to take different avenues, even if it might not be the initial action that they wanted to take. So I'm about that life. And I like the fact that you can score in like 3 different ways, as we were just discussing. Maybe not possible if you have a little combination, but it is what it is. I like the standing shelf that you can drop the things in. You have to be careful not to be too aggressive dropping them in because then they do go behind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this happened to me when I was like, I was all excited. I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a bit too aggressive because then I got stuck and I had to kind of pull it out. So, these are like not going to happen often, but just be mindful of those. But you can take the shelves apart. So they're easy to put together and take apart when you're ready to pack up. The only thing I found a little tedious was putting the tiles out because we played it electronically. And I think maybe this might have spoiled me a little bit.
Sure, sure,
That
sure, sure,
part of
yeah.
it was great because
Yep.
then it was like, done. In the
Mhm.
game, you have to take off the 4, 3, whatever tiles you have there. Then you got to repopulate it. And it's not like it takes hours, but it's just like one more tedious thing that you have to do. And I was like, okay, I could do without this. But again, not the end of the world. So overall, my shelfie, I very much enjoyed this game. And even though the rules are simple, still have some really interesting decisions to make. And I think like my score usually ends up being in the 40s, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I work really hard to get those 40 some odd points. So I don't know, Suzanne, I know you
Absolutely
played
fair.
it once or maybe twice. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I feel very similarly to you about it overall. I only played it digitally,
Okay.
which I think makes a big, big difference.
Yeah.
But when you look at the design partnership here, Phil Walker Harding and Matthew Dunstan, I
Yeah.
think if I were to envision a game,
Yeah.
or I don't know, if you'd put myself in front of me and said, here are 20 game designers, which pair made
Yeah.
this game? I think that pair would come to
Sure.
mind. I would maybe pull those 2 names from the bucket, so to speak, because it does. Phil Walker Harding is known for doing streamlined,
Yeah.
straightforward, but engaging games, oftentimes with really delightful settings or themes. And Matthew Johnson is pretty broad, I think,
Yeah.
in his range, but he does a lot of like um uh, roll and writes, right? He's behind Postmark Games with his partner there, and does other games that range into highly more strategic. I do notice that he does a lot of set collection,
Yeah.
and here we have my shelfie. So I think it's a delightful little game for sure. And who doesn't love great table presence?
This is it. So on my shelfie, and after meeting Phil Walker Harding and spending some time with him at the gathering of friends, totally was like, yep, I see it now.
Nice. Alrighty. Well, next up for me is a solo trick taking game that Mandy
Yeah.
you've played as well, and I think you've mentioned it, but we really haven't gone into it on the podcast before.
Yes, I did. So I'm excited for you to talk about it.
This is For Northwood, designed by Wilhelm Sue and published by Side Room Games. Now, I backed this on GameFound a little while ago and then forgot to do my survey for a little while.
You're one of
But
those,
yeah,
eh?
I am. All right, no judgment. Come on. But I got my copy through the GameFound and have played it a few times now. And because Mandy and I are big trick-taking game fans, right?
Yes.
I've had solo worker placement games that have worked, and solo puzzle games, solo roll and write, solo pathing games. Solo trick-taking?
I know.
Hmm.
That's different.
So in this game, it's all woodland themed and it has very cutesy art style to it. And you're going to have a deck of cards that follow a very traditional deck, just with thematic suits to it.
Mm.
And all of the face cards have special abilities on them as well. You also get a small set of cards that are just numbered. They're called the fief cards. So you lay those out in a row, 0 through 8, I think.
I think so.
And then you're going to pick some of the face cards to put, you shuffle them up and you put them out at random, and those are the rulers of those fiefdoms that you're going to try to beat and to win the game. And after you do that, you're going to have a few cards that, well, if you're playing on the easy mode, you're going to start with
Yeah.
jacks and have their abilities available to you. There's a more advanced mode in which it's all random what you
Yeah.
get to start with, which can make it harder.
Yes.
And then what happens is you've got your hand of 8 cards. You shuffle up and then you draw 8 cards. And then you're going to start flipping cards from the deck. And that is the fief's card play to you. Oh, I'm sorry. At the beginning, you're going to use this marker that they give you and pick which fief you're going
Yes.
to negotiate with, have a dialogue with. The thematically you're not fighting, thematically you're having a nice
Yes.
diplomatic chat, so to speak.
That's fair.
And the first card that flips is your opponent's, this fictitious fiefdom card, and then you get to pick a card from your hand to respond with. And that back and forth is going to follow very traditional trick-taking rules. You must follow suit if you can, and then the higher card of the led suit will win. Whatever the suit is of the royalty at that fief, that is your triumph suit for that round. So if the king of leaves is out there, then leaf cards will win offsuit hands and things like that. The goal is to win the exact number of tricks as is on the fief card. And if you recall, the fief cards go 0 to 8. So if I am talking with fief number 7,
Right.
I out of 8, I get 8 cards in my hand. I want to win 7 of those tricks. On the other hand, if I'm talking to fief number 1, I only want to win 1 of the 8 that I'm going to get.
So tricky.
Mm. And so, and that then that goes on. Each of the fiefs have different points associated with them, and after you go through all of them, at the end of the game, if you've managed to convince or have good diplomatic ties with enough of the fiefs and you get 16 or more points, you have won the game. And you can, that's how they also range the scale. You need more points to like have a harder game kind of thing to win. Yeah, I mean, do they make solo trick taking work? I think so. It doesn't quite feel like a trick taker to me,
Mm.
even though the card play does follow some very traditional trick taking rules in terms of following suit and high low win and triumph suits and things like that.
Right.
But that's not really a complaint. I mean, I think that for me, because I just am so into classic trick taking games like Pinochle and
Mhm.
Spades and Euchre, where oftentimes you have partner play, and there is certainly this element of reading your opponents and that social interaction. That's not in a solo game, obviously.
Right.
And so I think that that essence of trick taking, I'm gonna say I missed,
Mm.
but I don't quite mean it that way because overall, I really like this game. I will say, of all the things, I didn't care for their art direction on this one. It
Interesting.
is, it is baby new baby room cute. It is so over the top cute. It looks like artwork that you would put stickers on the wall in like your brand newborn baby's room.
And I liked it.
It's adorable. So let's be clear, there's nothing wrong with the art.
Sure, of course.
It is next level cutesy, which in some games I would adore. In this game,
You're right.
I wanted something just a little different personally. Does it
Right.
stop me from enjoying the game? No, not at all. It just there it did feel like the level of cutesiness and the type of gameplay felt
Sure.
just a little disconnected for
Sure.
me.
I can agree with that.
That's highly subjective, right? And again, I'm not there's nothing wrong with art. It's just there was just it felt a little disconnected from the gameplay
Right.
to me, which is not the end of the world. I really enjoy For Northwood. I think it's very, very clever. They did make a system that works. Even I do feel like it's a trick taking game, even though I was like, I'm not sure,
Mhm.
it because it follows those basic tenets of trick taking. I think they made it work overall, and I just have really enjoyed my plays. And Mandy, to what you were saying, it is
No,
challenging.
it really is.
It is challenging, and the different royalty abilities, I didn't talk about that, like, you can call in people to
Yeah.
support, but then you can only use them once, this kind of I didn't go into all that. Um, the different ways you use those cards, how to time them, and how to evaluate your hand, and this
Mhm.
is something I love about this game and how I often love about other trick-taking games. We talked about this in Tall Tales that I spoke about last episode. I like it when twist on trick-taking games change the way you evaluate your hand of cards, and
Right.
for sure, For Northwood does that as I'm thinking about how many tricks can I take, who do I want to attack, because even if I've got, if I'm going after the number 6, obviously the suit of your hand and the suit of the royalty there, all that really really matters, and it does really twist up how you assess your hand.
Mhm.
I really like that element as well. So overall, if you are a solo gamer, I absolutely think For Northwood is worth a look.
Yes, I agree. I do agree with you. The art's super cute, but I didn't definitely get like fiefdoms and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
the theme
Yeah.
didn't really correspond 100%. The art, I loved it, but yeah, I agree with you. But for Northwood, I'm not even a solo gamer, but I do love a good trick taking game, and this tickled for me. So for Northwood was very good. Well, the last game I'm going to talk about, it's healthy for you. Huh? Huh? Okay, maybe not. Diced veggies. They're good for you.
I know
Yay.
nothing about this game.
Okay, so it's new. I didn't realize how new. So, kids table board games were kind enough to give this to me when I was leaving at the gathering, and as soon as I got back, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cute. Let's give it a whirl." Fellow Canadians, I'm a big supporter of all, designers, but especially some extra love for my Canadians. So Dice Veggies is designed by Josh Capel, Jory Capel, and Rowan Capel. Oh, all the Capels. Look at this. Art is by Claire Lynn and published by Kids Table Board Games. I just read the names out now and realized that it's the Capel family. Oh, okay. So it's for 2 to 4 players. And it plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. Sorry, that took me by surprise. So I don't have a price for all of you. So I actually did a little search on a couple of the Canadian board game sites. I hope I can talk about this. Well, here we are. I wasn't told that I couldn't. And there's no it's not on the sites yet. So it is on BGG, but there's no rating or anything for it. So I think it's like
Is this
super.
game actually are you making this game up,
I'm like,
Mandy?
is it on my shelf? No, I didn't put it up on my shelf yet. So I should have, because now you all think she's telling stories. It does exist. I think it's just super new. So quickly, super, super straightforward game. So there are dice. Yay. Love dice. And what I like about the dice is they're colorful. So all the dice are going to represent ingredients, because in the purpose of this game or objective of this game is to try to complete orders, I guess you say. So dishes, you're trying to get all the ingredients together to complete dishes. And then when you think you get to the seventh dish, it's going to end the game, equal number of turns, and then the game will end. And then you're going to calculate points based off of uh, the dishes cards that you completed. And then they have these hype cards that can be added to dishes when you complete them to give them even more points. So super fun. So what happens is when you set up the game, so you have your little display of cards, and it's going to be 3 of the kind of dish cards that you can make. And you're going to have a couple in your hand to start, and you can only ever have 2 at a time in your hand of those. And then you have hype cards that you can also get. You'll start with 1 of those in your hand, and they'll have conditions on them, like, when you complete an order, all the dice have to be even numbers. So things like that. And the cards will show, like, you need like a carrot, and maybe lettuce and a mushroom, and the dice match the colors that you'd require for the card. The numbers only matter if you have a hype card that requires a numerical condition, like I said, having even numbers. So the dice are set up in they have this almost looks like a little square corral. So you roll the dice in it and then you make sure it's all lined up and you lift it up. And then you have this like cleaver. Now you don't smack the dice. It's just using you're kind of chopping them, right? So you're separating the dice. So when you choose dice, there are restrictions. You can't just decide to take ones in the middle. You have to be able to kind of like take them off the corners or the edges, and they have to equate to a total of 10 or less. So sometimes you'll get a 6 and a 6 in a corner. It's like, oh, I guess I'm only taking one die. You know what I mean? And you need dice to complete your orders because at the end of your turn, so after you take your dice, then you can look at your orders and you can complete as many orders as you have dice. But if you don't have enough dice to do them, then they're just kind of hanging out. But then you also get to draw a hype card and another recipe card, either from the deck or the display. So ideally, trying to complete them also to end the game quickly is the way you want to go. If ingredients are missing, so any like let's say not all the ingredients are represented on your turn, you can actually re-roll the dice and all the dice that have been people have used already, and then re-roll the ones that are there to get a whole new display of dice. So that's really nice for getting extra dice for your recipes. And like I said, I think it's the seventh recipe I believe has been collected. That's going to trigger the end of the game. Okay, I wasn't sure at first if this was going to be like too, I don't know what the word I'm trying to say is, too easy, maybe? Maybe more on like a juvenile level. And I don't mean
Sure.
that
More of a kid's game.
negatively,
Yeah.
but more of a
Okay.
kid's game, which it
Hmm.
still is, but so much fun. I don't know why we got all riled up about, ooh, I had to use my hype cards all the time because they gave me so many extra points. Um, Maybe I just had fun with the cleaver and trying to just like pretend I was chopping vegetables when they're dice. I don't know. Like I appreciate the thought that went into it. Rules are clear because I didn't need a player aid for this one because it was pretty straightforward. But I think I'm really feeling a lot of these games that are as someone who likes complex games, I sometimes just love games that are just really simple, but they just really get you excited or happy or make you think, but in a different way. And I really enjoyed that this was a simple game, but I still was like, "Ooh, I really want to play." I knew within the first 5 minutes that I like this game. Because have you ever played a game and you're like, "Oh, this is gonna be rough," in the first little bit, or you played a game, you're like, "Ooh, this is gonna be good." This was a "Ooh, this is gonna be good" kind of game. So I really don't have that much to say. There were a couple, I think, instances in the rule book where it wasn't like 100% clear on something. You can infer, but it probably should have just been listed out. But other than that, I thought the colors on the dice clearly matched the colors on the card, and they were represented by little pictures as well. So you knew that this was the ingredient, this is the color die that matches. I appreciate the theming of it and the components that were supplied, and it came in a really nice size box that's great for travel. So I don't I don't really have bad things to say about Dice Veggies. I really liked it, and we played it several times, and it's probably one that I'll continue to play. And this is one that I can easily teach people, which I think is really appreciated. So, Diced Veggies. I like it a lot.
I mean, that sounds adorable.
It's so cute.
And yeah, when it actually becomes a real game,
I'm sorry.
Mandy,
I thought it was out, and then I'm looking. I'm like, oh, I was wrong.
you tease, you tease. No, it's awesome. I
Yeah,
mean, I think that there's a lot of folks that really love hearing about brand new games, right? And
yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of the content I seek out is, learning more about the new hotness, so to speak. And I know we try to emphasize that you don't always have to do the new hotness
sure.
too, that like there's lots of games that are older than 6 months old that are
Yeah,
great too. But
absolutely.
you're not even you're bringing like the new future hotness, Mandy. That's
Yeah.
next level. I
This is
appreciate that.
like I might get in trouble for talking about it hotness. We'll see. I don't think so,
Oh,
but I
now
don't
it's
think so. I
getting
don't think so, but we'll see.
Ooh, I'm gonna write an email. Alrighty. Well, I think we're gonna call it good on games played for this week. Mandy, you and I have a game to talk about next week,
Yeah,
Lacrimosa, that is a little bigger. So we
right.
want to give that lots of space to come out and chat
Absolutely.
about. So we'll talk. We'll lead off next episode's games that we've been playing with Lacrimosa. But the show's not over, of course, because we have not served up dessert. That's right. It's game pie time.
Yes.
Woo! Okay, so I was thinking about this about as you may have heard, we've had a rough few years, folks, globally. And it was really interesting time to be a board gamer because board gaming is such an in-person activity, right? And so when you are not supposed to be around other people, it makes it a little awkward. Of course, there have been great games that have gone digital and there's so many more options and people, including us, Mandy, not to pat ourselves on the back, got very
Yeah,
clever about playing games remotely and things like that.
sure.
But it was an interesting time for the hobby, and I kind of feel like because of the weirdness, AKA, a global pandemic that we are in, some games might have just slipped under the attention. And it's always a little weird to call them underrated or under the radar games because, of course, people have found them in some way or another. But games that maybe we wanted to highlight that maybe you miss, maybe we don't see talked about quite as much from kind of certain years. It's always fun to kind of elevate little gems that we feel deserve a little more attention. So we're going to call this Under the Radar 2020. So games from 2020 that we feel are under the radar. Now, Mandy,
Yes.
before we start, I'm just going to elevate myself a little in my chair and I want you to check out my shirt.
Okay, let me see.
Can
Just
you read that?
yep, just pie. PIE. That's it,
So
everybody.
yeah, I am wearing a shirt, folks, that just has the word pie on it. Although recently it was pointed out to me that that is being very English centric because if you are a Spanish speaker, it means something very different. So now I feel very awkward about wearing this shirt out anywhere because there's a fair number of Spanish, especially from Mexico in the
Sure.
Seattle area, and now I don't want them to think I'm wearing a shirt that just says feet on it. So
Oh,
yeah, I
yeah.
gotta think about that
At
one.
least in French feed, it's PIED. There's a D.
Right.
So if you put
Yeah.
pied, you might be in trouble.
Yeah. Anyway, so I've got my game pie shirt on, but only for now.
Okay.
Mandy, why don't you kick us off? Because I know that this game pie, you snuck a little whipped cream on
I
top, so to speak.
did, cause during the pandemic, it was rough for me, I'm not gonna lie to you, like, I had to play a lot of solo games or, digital, which we do anyway, it was fine, but the solo ones really got me, but, on my list, there were a couple that I know we played, you and I, or maybe just Ashley and I, or all 3 of us, and lots of fun times, so I'm here for it. So, the first on my list is, I think, potentially you and or Ashley recommended this one to me, and that's Praga Caput Regni. So I this is a bigger game, so it definitely is like a
Yeah,
weightier
yeah,
game, but it is
heavier.
a Vladimir Suchi game, which I mean, I'm a big fan, and I think it's published by Delicious Games. And in this game, I'm not gonna go too deep into it. I think one of the things I really enjoyed was the different elements of the game that you got to set up because, like, you had like the steps that they had like set up in the game that you can use. And it is one of those games where there's like a rotating like action area. So you want to try and make sure that you got your money in play or you're not gonna be able to afford some of these things that you want to do on the board. Actually, I think I played with this with Jeremy from Jambalaya Games. He in fact was the first person that I played it with. And anyway, long story short, it takes place during the kind of medieval Prague time, and it is one of those games that uses kind of a circular kind of thing that moves for would you call it a rondelle? I don't think so in this particular game. It was more of just an action area that rotated.
Right, right. No, I would call it a rondelle.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't really sure if that would 100% be rondelle, but there you
Uh,
go. And then you had your own board that you were monitoring as well, in order to get additional points in other means or to track resources that you had. So it's a big game. I won't go into too many details about it, but Praga Caput Regni is one I felt that people I didn't hear a ton about it, and it just maybe because it launched during the time when the pandemic happened. I really enjoyed it, and I really hope that people who have heard of it and haven't tried it get a chance to do so.
love it. No, I am very fond of that game. It is
Yeah.
a bigger one for sure, and but worth it.
Yeah.
My, first slice of pie is a little smaller, significantly smaller. It's just a card game. It's got some cubes called
Yeah.
Cafe. This is
Mm.
published by Pythagoras Games and it plays 1 to 4. And it's a game all about making coffee from bean to roasting to serving kind of situation. And the cards have a grid on them with different colored beans or espresso machines or cups on them, etc. And really, what this has to do with is actions, right? Harvesting, roasting, drying. drying then roasting, I think, or making the coffee, getting the
Yeah.
coffee out there. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be getting these cards and you're going to be using them kind of like tiles, and you're going to be laying them over each other, covering up certain squares, things like that. There are placement rules about that. So you're building a little personal tableau. But the twist is that these, of course, are giving you actions. So as you're covering up things, you are limiting yourself, but sometimes you need to do that for the placement rules or for a variety of other things. There are also a very specific order that you have to do things in. You can't roast beans that you don't have. So you have to harvest the
Right.
beans first, and you can't serve coffee that you haven't roasted. So you have to do things in a very specific order, and managing your tableau that way is pretty tricksy. Now, I was taught this game by Mandy, our mutual friends, Netters and Mitchell,
Nice.
and yeah, and I fell in love with it, just got my own copy, have played it a couple of times multiplayer, but I've also played it solo a bunch of times, and it's really delightful as a solo game as well. So, Cafe, it's one of those delightful little small box games that packs a little more it puts out a little more than what you think it does for the size of the box and things like that. So, definitely 1 to 4 players, cards as a tableau, cafe, I highly recommend it. Plus, that theme, you can't beat.
Absolutely. Okay. I don't know this one, but if they recommended it, it has to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So the next game on my list is a two-player game actually, and I played this one with Ashley, I believe. I think it was Ashley who taught it to me, and I think I only played it
This
digitally.
this would be an Ashley game.
It is because it's mean. It's called Aqualin, and I think this was a Cosmos game if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, one of the
Um,
Cosmos 2 player line.
yeah, and so yeah, Aqualin. What is it? Yeah, it's just Aqualin, and I only played it digitally. I actually still haven't played the physical copy, even though I have it. Because like Suzanne mentioned, two-player games are a bit trickier for me to play. And this one here, you're taking stones and placing them kind of on a board, so like empty areas, and you're trying to make groups of the same color. But the other player has ways of making it difficult for you to make these groupings together. And oh my goodness. I mean, yeah, this is a mean game. Not gonna lie. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it was mean. But it is one that I actually wish people got to try because it is actually very pretty. I think I just like the colors of it. It's simple but pretty, but it does have a little bit of an edge to it. So maybe not for everybody, but definitely one you should at least give a try if you like two-player games. So that's Aqualin.
Excellent choice. I love Aqualin. It is brutal.
It is.
It is absolutely brutal. Alright, next slice up for me, Trois Dice. Now, of course, whenever I can promote roll and writes, I love to bring up roll and
Yeah.
write. So Trois Dice is the roll and write take or roll and write game set in the same universe as Trois, which is a fairly well liked worker placement game.
Hmm.
And in Trois Dice, you've got a rondelle of sorts and your player sheet with three, four different main areas. And it's like so many other roll and writes where you're trying to fill in and just draft dice and assign them to the right areas. And there are some conditional fill ins, and you're trying to go left to right. There's some element of selecting the scoring that you get to have, which is something I always enjoy in games as well. I think one of the nice twists of Trois Dice is that you get clear dice. And the reason why you get clear dice is the that when you are drafting dice, it's actually the color of the placard underneath the die that matters, and
Okay.
these placards flip after they've been used. So you kind of have this rotating, changing environment that drives how the dice work and what sections they can be applied to. And I just think it's a nifty little system that I really hadn't seen before in a roll and write game. It plays very smoothly. It is a very straightforward game overall. There's that is not a criticism, and it has a great player count range as well. It's one of those that you can just kind of shove people into. Um, if I am recalling correctly, I might now just be mixing it up, but it plays like 1 to 10. So
Oh,
that is Twat Dice. Came out in 2020.
I heard mixed things about this one. I'll be very honest.
But
I
I did too. I did
did
too.
you? Okay, but
Yeah,
if
but
you
I
enjoy
like
it,
it.
yeah. So
In my pie. I liked it.
I'll have to give it a try then. Well, now we've gone from the smaller games back to the big games again. So for me, Anno 1800, and for those who play video games, you'll be familiar or know that Anno 1800 is based on the video game, which is like a city builder type game. It's actually really, really good. I really like it. And the board game does, I think, a really good job because it makes it kind of like, I like worker placement or games that, you take buildings and you use buildings to make other buildings or other things. I'm about that life. So this one does that. And this is a card based game. So it has, sorry, I shouldn't say it's card based. You use cards in order to complete objectives and to hire people, but it is actually tiles that create the buildings, and those are what you're going to use in order to generate resources or borrow resources from other players. And you also have ships that will allow you to transport these resources to different types of more advanced buildings. And the only gripe that I had with this game, and I say this outright, is I did find the end condition of the game lengthened the game, because it does make it like a almost 3-hour game if you have lots of cards, because in order to end the game, you need to get rid of somebody needs to get rid of all the cards, and every time you hire people, you need to get cards. So you're just never ending cards. So I do feel like that might be house rule depending on how you're playing, but the overall game itself, I thoroughly enjoyed. It is a Martin Wallace game, so I know a lot of people who are familiar with other Martin Wallace games would be like, "Oh, this might be something I want to try." But again, I didn't feel a ton of people were talking about it, and missed opportunity because it's actually a really good game. So Anno 1800.
Okay. Next slice for me of under the radar games from 2020. Blatterrauschen
Oh, so good.
or Rustling Leaves. Blatterrauschen is a roll and write game designed by Paolo Mori, which, hello. So basically, in this game, you're going to get a sheet and a couple of dice, and the sheet is laid out in a grid with various icons on them. Now, there are four different seasonal sheets in here, and they
Yes.
all play out fairly differently. Same
Mhm.
rules, but the way the icons score are different. So it makes a big difference. But the dice are really, really simple because you're going to roll them, and the value of one die will be the length of the rectangle you draw, and the value of the other die will be the height of the rectangle you draw. And you can kind of pick and choose, and you can pick and choose a little bit where you put it, but you, of course, have to be a smart planner. So you're just filling your sheet with rectangles. So if you roll a one and a three, it can be three wide and
Yeah.
one tall, or one wide and three tall. Figure out where you want to circle and encompass those icons into that area, and then score one type of icon. So for example, if I were to draw a rectangle and it had two trees and a squirrel, I would either choose to mark off trees or squirrels, right? And if I mark off trees, I can mark off two. If I mark off a squirrel, I'm only going to mark off one. But depending on how things score, maybe one squirrel is better than two trees for you in the moment. And that's the Paolo Mori twist, as I like to think of it, because it becomes absolutely agonizing in the best way as your sheet fills up and
Yeah.
as you're trying to gauge how different things score, where you can fit in, trying to save up for that big roll. Inevitably, by the end of the game, you're rolling, higher level pairs and you don't have room. So you have to give up and sacrifice that, all that other stuff. There's a lot, very simple rules, but the scoring twists on each sheet are wonderful. And there is just a lot more to this game than you would think, as I would expect from the designer.
Sure.
And the fact that you get four different sheets in there that play out totally differently, I think there's a ton of value as well. Now, this was published by Cosmos, and I think originally it was really a European thing
Mhm.
only under the name Blatterrauschen. Now they have the English edition called Rustling Leaves that I think is easier to get. And I wonder how that contributed to it maybe being a little bit slower to pick up in North America, maybe. I'm not
Right.
sure, but it is a great roll and write game. It's so good that Mandy knows that so that we could play during the pandemic, we created a digital Google
Oh,
Sheets
that was all
version.
you.
Well, because we loved it so much. So Rustling Leaves, it's really good.
No, it is. I think everybody at the gathering last year got a taste of it because I taught it literally to everyone. So, yeah, very good choice.
Good
The
one.
next one on my list is another one that has memories of you, me, and Ashley, and that's My City. And that was that
Aw.
I guess it would you say it's like a but yeah, it's a campaign game because
It's a legacy game.
legacy. I don't know, I keep saying campaign. Legacy is what I meant. Because you ideally want to play it with the same people, and it's one of those, polyomino games, which I'm really bad at, but it's just so fun. But then they add, restrictions like, can't build in these areas because now there are stones here, or if you build here and do this XYZ, you're going to get more points, or things like that. And it progressed over, I think it was like 10 games, something along those lines. And
At least, yeah.
yeah, and we went through like I had a little camera set up and everything and close up of the cards, and it was really easy actually for us to play, and we'd even play like 2 or 3 games sometimes
Because
in a
they are
sitting.
quick games overall, yeah.
Exactly. So My City is another one I feel like I feel to heard talk about it people talk about it a little bit but not a ton, and just not saying that it was a bad game, it was fantastic. It came out at a time where it was really difficult to get together with people and play. So if you haven't tried My City, I think I ended up passing mine along to somebody because we were playing in different locations. So I only ended up using one board. So I was like, yeah, sure. Like if you want to if
Yeah,
I
if
can
you
pass it
repack it the
on.
right
And
way, somebody else could, yeah, finish out the materials.
absolutely. And they were very happy to have it. So My City, definitely should try it if you haven't.
And Mandy, the sequel game, My Island, is coming out soon.
Okay, we'll definitely have to do that one for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it myself. All right, my last slice of pie, but Mandy's got some
Just a
extra.
quick one after.
But my last slice of pie is the 100 Tori. And
Yeah.
Tori here is spelled Torii, and it is referencing the Japanese Torii gates that you will see in that country. And basically, it is a tile laying pathing game with resources involved, and you are going to be laying out tiles. Oh, did I mention artwork by Vincent Dutray and designer is
Oh,
Scott Caputo? So a really,
super nice.
really great designer illustration cred here as well. So tiles have different paths on them and different icons on them representing different things that you find in a garden because thematically you're just like having a nice stroll in a garden. Oh, and you're laying out tiles to create this path. But what you want to do is you want to create the path in such a way that as you are following the path back to the hub, you are going through as many of those gates as possible, connecting to all these different icons as you go and trying to kind of essentially do a set collection in that
Right.
sense. It plays very smoothly. I think that one of my complaints about it has been I want more of the art because it's so pretty and the
Right.
icons because they for playability, which I respect, they have these extra icons on the board. I'm like, "Oh, but it covers up so much art. I want the art." But I respect what they're doing. That's not a complaint, really.
Yeah.
I love this game, and they just released a sequel for it as well, which is
Yes.
really, really exciting. But the 100 Tori tile laying pathing not too heavy, not too light. It's a really, really fun, approachable game, and I love it. So that is my last slice of Under the Radar 2025. But Mandy, you've
I
got
still
one
need to
more.
play it. I still need to play that one.
Oh,
I know it was tough to get a table, but now I have no excuse. So that'll be one that gets there. And my last slice of pie is called Village Green. So if anybody wants to check it out, I think I did do a solo play of this on the channel because it was during the pandemic, and it was rough. Not gonna lie. The game itself, fantastic. You're making gardens. You're using cards set out in a certain type of grid, and you're trying to kind of work your way through the garden while doing that, meeting certain conditions like having a certain amount of trees or a certain amount of colors or symbols in order to gain the most amount of points. My garden was a little rough, so if you want a good chuckle or just a little smile on your face and go, I can do better than that, you can check out my solo play of Village Green on the channel. Again, another game, really well done. Again, I felt that I just didn't hear a ton about it, but hopefully now I've been seeing more and more people talk about it online, so you should all give it a go. So Village Green by Osprey Games.
very, very fun game. And I love the sequel game, Village Rails, as well. So
Nice.
if you haven't played that, Mandy, check
Yes,
it out.
on the list.
Okay. Well, Mandy, you really snuck in some extra pie there. I have to say, I approve. Well
Yeah.
done. I think that's a fun one. Let's
Yeah,
pick another year. We could do
for sure.
2021 for the
That's a good
pandemic,
idea.
or we could go back in time too and just kind of highlight maybe little gems that we think deserve a little extra love. I think that's fun.
Absolutely.
But we'll call this a wrap for episode 18. Thank you so much for joining us. For sure, feel free to email us and tell us more words for thank you in different languages. Mandy always loves getting those. You can reach us at saltandsassgames at gmail.com. Or, of course, you are welcome to chime in on the BGG Guild thread. We are guild number 4131, or you can search in guilds for Salt and Sass. Or, Mandy, there might be some socials that people can find us on as well.
Yes, we're on all the socials. Some of you potentially are watching us right here on the YouTube, and we are also on the Twitch at Salt and Sass Games. We are also on Twitter, the Twitter, and it's spelled a little differently there, Salt N Sass Games. So you can find us there as well. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and now Blue Sky, actually, at 613 Mandy, and that's Mandy with an I.
And you can find me on every social media platform, including Blue Sky, at 425 Suzanne. Next episode, episode 19, we
Mhm.
have an expert coming in.
Yes.
Author Aaron Trammell is going to be speaking to us all. They have written a book recently called, and of course, now the Privilege of Play. So I'm
Correct.
really looking forward to hearing from Aaron. Thank you so much for that. That'll be something to look forward to. And of course, as always, thank you all for joining us and for being here. It is truly a pleasure and privilege to be part of your extended gaming family. And we hope that you have a wonderful couple of weeks until next episode. Stay hydrated, play lots of games, and we'll see you next time.
That's it. Bye, everybody. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode was sponsored by Druid City Games, where player experience comes first. Check out all of their great games at druidcitygames.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, please check us out on coffee.com/Salt and Sass Games. Thank you for your support. We are also a part of the Goonhammer Media Network. Check out more of their content on media.goonhammer.com. Salt and Sass is produced with love by Suzanne and Mandy, and we'll be back next episode with more salt, more sass, and more games.